What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. It is indeed a little time to talk a little football on this August 11th, 2026. I am absolutely just drained from all the hoops talk, drained from the WNBA talk, drained from all the drama. And now we get a lot going on in the NFL right now. Lloyd Vance in a couple moments. Get in early and often in the conversation. I posted already the biggest offseason storyline as we head in to this 2026 NFL season. And we're already starting to see injuries are without a doubt taking a toll on some of these teams. We're seeing already quarterback competition. And I don't think there's quarterback drama. I think maybe it was nipped in the bud a couple hours ago in Minnesota. And I'll get into that. And then obviously, we'll kind of dance around the block what's going on in the NFC East with the Giants, Washington, Dallas, and of course the Philadelphia Eagles. But as I mentioned, I threw it out there. Biggest storyline in your estimation heading in to this season, off-season stories, right? Because we know quarterbacks change venues, quarterback change teams, coaches come and go. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag, to be quite honest with you. And it's interesting that Minnesota already comes out today. The Minnesota Vikings came out today, early on in training camp, and pretty much have already named the week one starter. Which, when you think about it, is that a good move? Is that a bad move? They announced Kyler Murray, their starting quarterback. And I think, again, he's had some rocky series of practices leading up to this decision, but maybe this is one of the reasons that Minnesota wanted to nip it in the bud, because they believe that ultimately J.J. McCarthy is not going to be the answer. Carson Wentz is a journeyman quarterback at this point of his career. Brahmer probably will stay on the roster, but he's not the answer. And I think this is a great opportunity for Kyler Murray to shine. You might argue, why did they name him starter right away? And I can tell you this, I don't know. I think you want to have a little bit of competition at the quarterbacking spot. You want to have a little bit of these quarterbacks kind of pushing each other. And I also maintain this, and I threw it on the channel. I think Kyler Murray is due for a bounce back year. You got a lot of weapons. You look how, again, fast turf, fast track, they can run the football, a new system's in place. So to me, he's one of those quarterbacks that are going to be fascinating to watch going into the season because, again, just never really hit that full potential and stride with the Arizona Cardinals. And that's a bad football team, and we know that. But maybe the decision, you're talking, you do it early right now because that gives Kyler Murray a month of practice time, full time, with the starting offense. And he doesn't have to split reps with J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy was not worthy of a top 10 pick. He just wasn't, and obviously we've seen early on in his career he's injury prone, 10 career starts. He's not going to last in the NFL. The only reason he went top 10 is because Harbaugh basically, was waxing poetic about him coming out of college. So you know it, and I know it. So that's a decision that comes down today in the NFL. Minnesota saying, hey, we're going to ride it out. This is who are going to be our guy. Now, you got to stick with him. That's the other thing. You got to stick with him. You have to stick with him, right? Now, in our backyard, NFC East, Dallas, Giants, Washington taking some hits already with some injuries. And then the Philadelphia Eagles. Everyone now is starting to look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, a little thinner. Here we go. Faster. RPOs. They can run the football a little bit. Hurts, Sirianni. Is it going to mesh? Is it going to work? They lose A.J. Brown, but they do have some weapons. I look at the Giants. Everyone knows, you see behind me, the Giants are my squad, obviously. Jackson Dart, that year number 2 progressions. Harbaugh. Does Harbaugh come in right away? Has he changed the culture right away? I know they've dealt with some injuries. I know they've dealt with a very inconsistent offensive line. You think maybe they clean that up. Then you've got the Dallas Cowboys, and it never, again, and Lloyd will bring this up when he chimes in. But the Cowboys, I wouldn't even say they're an enigma because the Dallas Cowboys win their Super Bowl in June, July, and August. And I maintain this, just like I say with the Buffalo Bills, just like I say with the Baltimore Ravens, because Dak Prescott's a good quarterback. At times, he can be a very good quarterback. I don't think he's on the level of Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's on the level of Josh Allen, but he makes an obscene amount of money. He's been the franchise quarterback for a decade plus. If not now, when? When you talk about the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. And if you remember early on in the season, 4, 5, 6 weeks in, Dak Prescott was playing at a MVP caliber level. But he has been the mainstay. He's been the mainstay. He won the position in 2016. We know obviously he wasn't a high draft pick. He was a fourth round pick, 135 out of Mississippi State. And he's had a really nice career with the Dallas Cowboys. So you equate it to round 4, pick 135. He's played in this league a long, long time, put up a lot of numbers. Probably will have his star retired when it's all said and done. Not a Hall of Fame quarterback, but for a round 4 pick, he's been a successful quarterback and he's won. The problem with Dak is you're always going to be judged by your playoff failures and not being able to make a deep run into the playoffs. If we're going to hammer that home with this quarterback, you got to hammer it home with other quarterbacks. That's just the way I look at it. And then you got Washington. And there's a lot of rumblings right now coming out of D.C., coming out of Washington, that they're waiting for the other shoe to drop with Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels burst on the scene as a rookie. Phenomenal rookie campaign. And then what happens? Last year, gets banged up, gets injured, only plays in 7 games. The offensive line was abysmal. They actually did a much better job over 11 games for Mariota. He was only sacked 16 times. So where are the Washington Commanders at right now? And they've already dealt with some injuries. I mean, it's absolutely brutal. I mean, you lose Laremy Tunsil. That is a major, major loss. He's going to have tricep surgery, and he's going to be sidelined to start the season. He's going to miss significant time. And you think about his position, the left tackle, what? Protects the quarterback's blind side. So, yes, in that regard, now you've got an issue with Washington. So, I still believe the NFC East, it's the Eagles' division to lose. And then I would probably go Washington. I think, Dallas, Washington and the Giants. It's up in the air. DB chimes in. Let's go, baby football. Yes. Total Strange says, what's going on? Yo, Rich, what's your team? Who's your team? I'm disappointed Cowboys fan. I just told you, I'm a big blue. I'm a big blue fan. So you might be a disappointed Cowboys fan, but I can tell you this. The Giants have not been a very good organization, let alone franchise, in well over a decade. And I don't care about having a little cup of coffee with Daniel Jones and winning a playoff game on the road. I don't care about that. They need it to move on from Brian Daboll. Harbaugh comes in. Is Harbaugh going to be credited with plus 2 to 4 wins? I don't know. Jackson Dart is a young quarterback. Jackson Dart had a handful of starts. Jackson Dart, we know the type of style of football he plays. He's also shown that he gets banged up. He's a little injury prone. You don't know what you're going to get back from these wide receivers, this offensive line, or Scatterbill. So it's going to be a mixed bag in the NFC East. But we'll break it all down, absolutely. And fire away. Your biggest off-season storylines. Let me know where you're chiming in from. Let me know your team. And also fire off some questions if you have questions about your respective team. Because we want to dive into it. We want to break up the monotony like we did because we start to go very heavy with football. By the way, the Gambling Pod Back Your Play, we're going to fire that off in another week or two. We're going to start looking at the win totals, the first 5, 6, 7 games of the schedule. We'll give you some future lines as well. And when we go football heavy, we have to bring in our guy, our left tackle, always protecting our blind side. My guy, Lloyd Vance, our NFL insider, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on SR 1029 FM, The Game, every Monday night. And give him a follow on X at Lloyd Vance. My friend, how are you?
Doing good, Q. Hanging in there. What's up with you, man?
Well, I wanted to break up the monotony because there's too much drama going on in hoops in the WNBA. And I was like, you know what? We got to start getting in the training camp. We got to get in these battles. Some of these teams already being hit with the injury bug. But how about this? Minnesota already coming out and basically saying Kyler Murray is going to be our week 1 starter. This is something you and I talked about a couple weeks ago. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, I would put Kyler Murray even though the season hasn't begun yet, I would actually throw him in the conversation. He's a candidate for comeback player of the year. There's no way that McCarthy was going to get the nod. There was no way that Carson Wentz was going to get the nod. You bring in Kyler Murray. The expectation is he's had a handful of games. He's put up some yards in Arizona. It's a different offense. It's a different scheme. Now, my question to you is: little surprise they made the announcement today, or are you okay with it because he'll get about a month or so reps in with that first team offense?
No, I wasn't real surprised, Q, that this happened, like you, and they wanted it to get done sooner rather than later. O'Connell's up there and he has his scheme. He wants his quarterback in place, and they're going to have the joint practices coming up and their preseason games, and they wanted him to be the definitive starter. And let's face it, the guys around him, whether it was Aaron Jones or Mason, the other running back
Mm-hmm.
there, or Justin Jefferson, they thought Kyler Murray was the guy. They did invest a lot in terms of McCarthy.
Yep.
Uh, Kwesi Dolfo Mensa, who's no longer there as a GM, he picked him, and it was just disaster. He got hurt, and then he just is so inconsistent. So not surprising, Murray won that job, and the Cardinals going to pay the majority of his contract this year, about $36 million or so, and then he's on a 1 year make good deal with the Vikings.
Yeah, I think there's not he's playing with house money. I don't believe there's pressure on Kyler Murray, to be quite honest. I just don't. I think there's pressure on some other quarterbacks, but I also look around the league and I think some of their quarterback decision making or bringing in certain guys like I still maintain the Jets bringing in Geno Smith is a colossal mistake. But be that as it may, I don't think there's a ton of pressure on Kyler Murray because I don't believe even if he struggles early on, they're going to bench him, they're going to pull him for Carson Wentz or a JJ McCarthy who can stay on the field. Speaking of which, I want to really kind of dive into the NFC East. And like I told you guys, any NFL fans out there chiming in right now, let us know where you're coming from, your team. Fire off any questions for Lloyd and myself on a Tuesday edition of On Cue, powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. The Washington Commanders, that Tunsil injury, man. I mean, you're not going to be without him to start the season. He's the left tackle. He protects the quarterback's blind side. How much of an adjustment do you think that's going to be to that offense and Jaden Daniels?
No, it's going to be a huge adjustment because we knew this offensive line was a work in progress. You had Tunsil there, and you had Nick Allegretti at the center position. They were their two cornerstones, and now they got to figure out where they go from there. Sam Consomme at the right guard, he's solid, but Jane Daniels was very beat up last year. He had a wrist injury, he had a knee injury, and he's slight of frame, so he needs that protection up front. And I'm hearing they may look at Taylor Decker, who was a former Detroit Lion, as a free agent, maybe bring him in, but he's going to need that time to acclimate himself because you want the offensive line cohesive through, maybe that one preseason game and get them ready for the regular season. So it's a big loss for them, and we're going to see how they bounce back from that.
DB says Commanders are going to be bottom dwellers. Total Strange is a Cowboys fan, says Dak racks up useless stats and shrinks in big games. I still maintain, look, what's your better option right now if you're the Dallas Cowboys? And by the way, his contract, we know his contracts over the years have been an albatross. But before you popped on, again, I know you're going to laugh because we have the same conversation all the time. If not when, right? If not now, when for the Dallas Cowboys, right? Because do we look at Dak and say, well, he was a fourth round pick, 135, and you have to appreciate the type of career he's had? Or do you sit there and say, you know what, we're kind of past that fourth round draft pick. That was years ago. Make a deep run, take us into, a deep playoff run, which is something he has not been able to do throughout the course of his career.
Yeah, 2016 when he was the rookie of the year is a long time ago, Q. In a situation where he needs to step up. He's given that big contract, as you were talking about, from Jerry Jones, making the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League. Mahomes' new contract to supersede that next season, but just has not lived up to expectations. Last year, 7-9. The offense did put up points, 27 per game, but that defense was just terrible, and that's what they went about to fix it. They gave Quinn Williams his new contract, brought him over, and Rashawn Gary and D. Winters is there coming from the Niners, but it is now or never for the Dallas Cowboys. I think Schottenheimer kind of was a second choice, and he's going to have to step up to get things done. He has Clayton Adams there as OC, and then they bring over Christian Parker from the Eagles to be their defensive coordinator. So a lot of big names there in Dallas, particularly on offense, but they got to live up to expectations.
How about Miss B chiming in from Vegas, baby? Afternoon, Rich, the Cowboys head coach related to Marty, former KC coach. Yes, that was his father, Marty Schottenheimer. There you go. We love when we get the young ladies who want to chat football with us. So you got to understand something. It's been a very contentious chat when we talk WNBA. Now it's football time. Now the real trash talking, but in a peaceful manner, begins, and that's what we are here for on a Tuesday edition of On Cue. All right, how about the Giants? I mean, when you look at this team, and I know DB is a big time Giants fan. Everyone knows I'm a Giant fan. But I just have to be very realistic with this team, right? I mean, we know you have a bunch of offensive players coming off some injuries. I think the loss of Robinson going to Tennessee is huge. You know, I've never really been a full believer in the offensive line. Harbaugh's got to come in, and Harbaugh has to be that disciplinary, right? But Harbaugh has to know that Jackson Dart plays a certain style. And now all of a sudden, are you asking Jackson Dart to go away from that, right? Or do you not call as many RPOs? Do you let him hang in the pocket a little more? I just don't. I feel like I've been saying this since 2011. I can never feel fully confident with the offensive line with the New York Football Giants because I just know they've gone through quarterback after quarterback after quarterback, and now you've got Jackson Dart, handful of starts in year number one, Lloyd, second year. So we always talk about the progressions in second year. So I want to ask you this. What are your expectations of Jackson Dart in year number two, and what are your expectations with Harbaugh now leading the helm for this Giant franchise?
Well, Jackson Dart, first and foremost, he's got to play more consistent, Q. Particularly, you talk about he runs the football. He's got to be smarter. He's got to slide. I know they're working on that with him this preseason, and he's got to get the ball out of his hands. He can't hold it too long and try to play hero ball. And with that offensive line, that lends to him getting hit. You know, other than Andrew Thomas, who's a solid left tackle, you kind of have some question marks on that offensive line. They did draft Francis Mayaga in
Mm-hmm.
the first round this year. He's going to be at the right guard position, and we'll see if he's able to kind of upgrade that line. But the playmakers, they need Malik Neighbors to come back healthy from that ACL, and then it's like pick a receiver. You got
Correct.
OBJ, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, Darnell Mooney, Calvin Austin. You got all these retreads, so you wonder how these pieces are going to fit together. I do like the addition of Isaiah Likely. I
Me
think
too.
he could be down the seam tight end, and then they have Theo Johnson, so they can do some of those two tight end sets and Scadaboo, I think he's best served to kind of split carries with Tracy there and kind of not be that feature back. I know he wants all the pub, but I think that Harbaugh's going to come in there and establish that Ravens toughness. His storyline kind of weighed on the Ravens after all those years, but he's a fresh voice coming to New York Giants, and he's bringing Matt Nagy, who's going to have that Chiefs playbook, and they will probably have Dart on the move a lot more this season.
Was last year more of an aberration with a head coach who was already a dead man walking? I mean, there were games. See, the rub is this: for everyone, when you're a fan and you want to go out and you want to win games and you get ticked off that your team loses games, it's totally understandable and it's warranted and it's justified. But remember, they started off the season 0-3. And one of those games, Russell Wilson scored 37 and threw for 450, right? They get the win against the Chargers, and then they go on the road. Dart, Scadaboo with the mistakes. They had their high water mark against Philly in a win at home, and they never beat the Eagles and never beat them, certainly at home. And then they had a disastrous loss to Denver, and that sent them down that path of losing eight straight. And there were a couple games in there: Chicago, Green Bay, Detroit. They were winnable games. Minnesota was a winnable game. They lost 16-13. So to me, you bring in Harbaugh because you want that coach who's got experience closing out games in the fourth quarter. It's one of the reasons that I think they're going to be much more competitive, but I don't know if it's going to equate to W's.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, Q, because There's some veterans on this team, and you're right. Under Dayball, they could not finish games. They also couldn't win on the road. 1-8 on the road last season, 2-4 in the division, and that just showed you in key moments that these guys could not get it done. So Harbaugh's trying to fix some things. He has a lot of names on that defense, and Denard Wilson, who's been a loyal assistant with him with the Ravens over the years, and they're going to have to get that defense cranked up. Last year they allowed 25 points per game. They got to get some pressure from Abdul Carter and some of these other guys there, and I think the kicking game is going to be more consistent with Harbaugh. Don't forget when I used to cover him with the Eagles,
Special
he
teams.
was an Eagles special teams guru.
Yeah,
So you have
yeah.
Jason Sanders coming over from Miami, and they're hoping he can make some big kicks because last year the kickers were just awful.
No, they were horrible. But you would also think, hey, Harbaugh, run the ball a couple more yards with Derrick Henry. Give your rookie kicker a little less real estate, right, in that game to close it out against Pittsburgh. And then you got the Philadelphia Eagles, and I know you talk a lot of the Philadelphia Eagles on your show. I mean, Jalen Hurts, everyone's saying by all accounts. I know you got your spies out there in training camp. Slim down, a little faster. Look, I just there are 31 other teams in the league that would take Jalen Hurts. He just wins. He puts up numbers. He consistently is good. He wins. And now I think this year he's going to be more under the microscope. There's going to be more pressure with Jalen Hurts because there's no Antonio Brown, which again, you got your tight end, you got Saquon, you got some weapons on the outside, you got Devontae Smith. How do you believe this team overcomes that loss of A.J. Brown? And I mean, are they do you envision this team going back to what they did 2 years ago, running the football behind that offensive line led by Saquon Barkley?
You would think that they would lean on that running game. Now, Sean Mannion coming in, he's a passing guy. So, they're going to try to spread this football around. And, replacing A.J. Brown is going to be huge. Devontae Smith's been a little banged up going into camp. You have Makai Lemon, their high draft pick. He's already had a pull hamstring, hasn't really been able to practice much. And then you're counting on Dontavian Wicks and Hollywood Brown. And so you like who's going to step up of that group,
Mm-hmm.
and then the offensive line. That's the key to me, Q, in
Right.
terms of rushing the football. You have Lane Johnson. He's on his last ride
Yep.
season. You wonder what he's going to bring to the table after that Liz Frank injury. Tyler Steen next to him was kind of inconsistent, and then you had Cam Jurgens and Dickerson who were both beat up. So the offensive line's got to play well, and then Saquon. Let's face it, 2018 number 2 overall pick. So he's been in the league for quite some time now, and you're starting to wonder is age creeping up on him after all those touches a couple of years ago.
Jeff chimes in, go Lions. Hope Denver does well. I like Bo Nix. We'll get to your Lions in a second, my friend. What did Miss B say? Let Dak be the quarterback they drafted him for. Let him run. It still has it. I would love to see Dak from his college days. Those days, my friend, are long gone. Quarterbacks get old overnight. Now, they also invested. We talk about these teams that realize we need to protect, right, the quarterback. We got to invest in the offensive line. We got to get the protection there, and obviously, it's exactly what they did, right? I mean, you invest in the offensive line, but also you're turning around. And you're doing what? You're locking up big time players on the defensive side of the ball. That was their problem with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, defensively, they just could not get out of their own way. They just, I looked at this team and I'm like, this is just, they can score 35 points. They can score a lot, but they were giving up a substantial amount of defense. So, we talked about that offense. How about that base 3-4? They give Williams that big kind contract, 28-year-old defensive tackle.
Yes, now this group they're trying to patch it up. As you said last year, it allowed 511 points. That's 30 points per game, worse than National Football League. We're in way too many shootouts, and they have a ton of offensive weapons. Everyone knows C.D. Lamb, George Pickens. They can, Jake Ferguson come along tight end position, and Javonte Williams had that great bounce back season. So they're going to put up some points, but they need guys like Ken Clark that they got from Green Bay and Rashawn Gary also to step up, and Quinn Williams now that he has that contract. Also, the secondary queue, they've been a little downtrodden, so they're bringing over Kobe Durant from the Rams, Jalen Thompson from Arizona. So they're trying to bring some new pieces in there because I think that secondary just got burned way too much last year.
Lloyd Van's kind enough to join us. Tuesday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. For those in the chat, what's your biggest storyline, off-season storyline? Got a lot of Giant fans chiming in now. I don't know where you guys were last year, right? I mean, I love it. I'd like to hear it. Some of you guys are ripping Robinson. Listen, you also got to remember, too, he was a slot guy, and he went over to middle, and he provided a safety valve, right? A safety net. Now, again, you are, as you mentioned, you're banking Neighbors coming back healthy. Beckham's got nothing left in the tank. I mean, come on. If Beckham had 35 catches, 400 and something yards, and a touchdown, if he even makes the friggin' roster, you'll take it. Slayton, they bring back. And Slayton has also been an inconsistent player. I think the bulk of the offense, they're going to try to run the friggin' football, as you mentioned, running back by committee, and they're going to let Jackson Dart go back there under center, a little more confidence, right? A little more composure, and sling it. And I love the tight end. I love the weapons. I like the kid Likely. I even like the kid Theo Johnson that has good hands, just needs to hold on to the football from time to time. I mean, look, the reason that they went in the direction that they went in the direction, yes, we know their schedule ad nauseum last year. We know exactly how it broke. It was very tough. And oh, by the way, just to break it to you Giant fans, it's not like it's easy to start the season. They've got Dallas. They go on the road against the Rams. Tennessee at home, Arizona at home. Then you got a divisional matchup. The Saints are going to be a little better. And then you take on Houston on the road. So, listen, I say this every year, do I not? As a Giant fan, if I can't get past October 31st, you know what happens. We go fishing. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, if this team is not 3-3 after 6, they're going to be in store for a long season.
Yes, and they've had no.
Oh, I think I lost you, Lloyd. Might have to pop up, Lloyd. No, can't hear you. Can't hear you. No, still can't hear you. Might have to pop you. There you go. There you go, brother. Go. Yeah, I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, it was a situation where, they had too many 0-2 starts, the last couple of years, Q. And they're digging themselves a hole, and they got to come off to a fast start this year. The Giants, as I said, they've been trying to clean this thing up, but it's a very competitive division, with the Philadelphia Eagles being their back-to-back champions, Dallas always spending their money, and then Washington surprising everybody a couple of years ago. So Joe Shane did survive, and he put some talent out there, but we're going to see how it all comes together. But that receiving position, there's definitely some question marks there, Q.
Ms. B says, aren't the Giants essentially still in a rebuild? Yeah, I believe they are. Now, I can see this in a new chat. I love it. Thanks for chiming in. You are a Giant fan. I can appreciate that. They are definitely in a rebuild. When you go with a new head coach and a young quarterback, and you jettison a lot of veteran players, and you clean house, that is in essence a rebuild. Don't look at Harbaugh coming in being the savior right away. You still have a very young quarterback that, for all intents and purposes, we still don't know who Jackson Dart is. We just don't. I've seen this before. I've seen this team go through the McAdoos, the Shermers, the Judges, the Brian Dables. I saw them do it with Dan Reeves, an aging quarterback, and still win 11 games. And then he was gone after 2-3 years, which finally opens up the door for Fossil, which finally opens up the door for Coughlin. I know this team inside and out. This is a flat-out rebuild. And that's one of the reasons that they decided, let's bring in who? A proven head coach who's won before, that's going to hang around for the next 3, 4, 5 years. This is the first thing the Giants have to do, besides winning friggin' football games. You have to beat teams in the NFC East. You always say it. We've been saying it for years. As long as we've covered this league, you got to win divisional matchups. Washington, yeah, they can split. They can beat Washington here and there. They never beat the friggin' Eagles. I don't care about last year. And they never beat the Dallas Cowboys. You start winning those NFC East games, then I'll start to take you more serious.
Yes, he's got a big job to clean up there. And Dayball, it just didn't work for him. And then I'm looking at this roster, a lot of guys on one-year type contracts where it's like, okay, let's try them out. Let's see if they're going to hang around. But they're going to try to build around these young guys that they've drafted. So, Javon Holland's coming over from Miami to play free safety, and you have Tremaine Edmonds at middle linebacker. But it's still, you want to see what these young guys could do, particularly Dart and Malik Neighbors, and see if they're going to be able to grow and be something special down the line.
Yeah, you got to have patience. It is not going to happen overnight. You're a couple weeks in the training camp, and you're already starting to see some training camp battles are already starting to take shape. I mean, obviously, we know it's going to be Jackson Dart, Jameis Winston. You know, we know those are your two quarterbacks, right? Obviously, Jackson Dart's going to be the starter. Winston is the veteran backup right now. Tracy Scatterbo, Singletary. Those are going to be your running backs. The wide friggin' receiver room, you'll go one tight end. I'm sorry, you'll go one fullback. You'll probably go two, three tight ends. Probably. They like Manhurts. He can block. They like Theo Johnson, and they love Isaiah Likely, right? Now you go receivers. That is a crowded room, right? So you're going to go with Slayton, yeah, because you re-sign him. Austin, you're going to go with Barrios. You're going to go with Odell Beckham. You're going to go with Nate. I mean, quite honestly, I'm not in love with these guys. I'm really not. You know, Hodges has been around. He's a possession receiver. Hyatt's a bust. Juju can't play. Mooney's not that good. But if people have this misconceived or these notions that Beckham's going to have 1,000-yard receiving campaign, just stop. They're going to have to rely on their ground game. They're going to have to ground out. They're going to have to grind out 17-13 type of games. They really are.
Yes, they're going to have to play old school NFC East football, and that defense that allowed almost 26 points per game, they got
Yeah.
to tighten up, and all those pass rushers that they drafted, someone's got to step forward and be the difference maker. So, yeah, I think the Giants, the win total is 7.5. I'd say, last year they won 4 games. Maybe they get to 5, 6 wins, and it's an improvement on last season. But as you said, it's a building season for them.
So let me just to appease some of the Giant fans. They're not going on the road and beating the Rams. They will split with Washington. They won't go on the road and beat Houston. They won't go on the road and beat Philadelphia. They're not going to beat Seattle on the road. They're not going to beat Detroit on the road. They're not going to beat Dallas on the road. Maybe they go on the road if they can play good defense. Maybe they beat Indianapolis. They still have Seattle on their schedule. They still have Dallas again at home, the Eagles again, Washington. Their schedule is brutal. For a team that only won a handful of games, it's utterly ridiculous, but this is the lot in life for the Giants, right? So if they can, if we get to the bye week, and look, if they win to open up the season at home against Dallas, and then you come back competitive against the Rams, but lose it maybe late, maybe a glimmer of hope. You beat Tennessee, Arizona, they're winnable games. But if they lose those games and they're a 1-3 team, then guess what? They're going into the bye with maybe 1, 2 wins. I want to be opportunistic. I really do. But I know this team. I know exactly how it's going to unfold. They're going to tease you a little bit. They'll win a game they have no business winning, and then they'll lose a couple games they have no business losing. I mean, last year, I counted 4 or 5 games they should have won. But I'm actually happy they lost. You know why? Because if they would have won, they probably would have ran it back with Brian Daboll.
And you're hoping that Harbaugh is going to bring that toughness that they can learn to finish games, and they got to win those winnable games, as you were saying. So week 3, Tennessee, week 4, Arizona, they got to win those type of games. And you figure that New Orleans game in week 6 is going to be a close one, and maybe they can surprise some teams, but they're facing 7 playoff teams in their schedule.
It's rough.
And that's a tough one. And you figure Dallas is going to be improved, and Washington, if they're healthy, they're going to be toughed out too. So, yeah, I agree that this schedule is it's going to be a tough one for them to matriculate.
And you got 2 marquee players come off injuries, right? Cowboys are trying to build something like 92 defense teams that live in the past. Miss opportunities to the present, have no future success to build on. The Cowboys always believe they're like the Yankees, that mentality. They can spend. Like, this is what happens. You take the Cowboys serious when they force you to take them serious, if that makes sense. Like, this is a team where if we're talking week 13, week 14, the Cowboys are right there. But they also have a tough stretch to open up the season. Look, you're going on the road against the Giants. You've got Washington that plays you tough. You've got Baltimore. You're on the road against Houston, Tampa, Green Bay, Philly. That's a tough stretch to open up the season for the Dallas Cowboys.
Correct. And week 3, they're playing Baltimore in Brazil. So you got the traveling
That's right.
situation there, Q. But, they're supposed to be the marquee franchise. And Jerry Jones, as you were saying, spends all that money. He's the owner. He's the GM. So he's trying to create this whole thing before.
Yeah, but I don't see any soft spots. I don't see any. I'm looking at their schedule right now. I don't see any soft spots. Maybe Arizona at home, winnable game. On the road against Indianapolis, winnable game. San Francisco at home. We know San Francisco, if they're healthy, that's going to be a whale of a contest. And then Tennessee, like maybe 3 out of 4 is kind of a soft spot, but then they have Philly, Seattle, the Rams, Jacksonville, and who knows? Maybe the Giants play that spoiler role. I don't know. Maybe Washington's trying to play that spoiler role. I don't believe the Cowboys. They were 7-9-1 last year. Their defense was god awful. They allowed well over 500 points. Their offense can score. The defense worries me, and you're going against what to open up the season? You're going against, a couple young quarterbacks in Dart and Daniels, and then you turn around and you're going up against some veteran guys in Jackson, in Stroud, and in Baker Mayfield, teams that can score, teams that can move the football. I feel as though if the Eagles just jump out to this 5-1 record, they're going to coast and win the division, hands down.
Yeah, and it would be way back in the day. They won the division 4 times in a row, and
That's right.
They won it twice last year. We'll see if they're able to three-peat. And getting back to Dallas, yeah, they're going to face a playoff team, Q. So it's they're going to have to step it up, and you wonder if Schottenheimer's the right guy to lead them, and Dak Prescott, can he get over the hump now that he's getting up there in age? Uh, we'll see. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, yes, I agree with you that they do have to get off to a hot start, and it's going to revolve around Jalen Hurts and those receivers. Are
Yeah.
those receivers are going to be on the same page, and can Saquon run the ball effectively? So, yeah, this Eagles team, I don't know, Q. It's going to be a competitive division. They're not going to run away with it like they have in the past. It seemed like everyone last year, uh, Dallas was 4-2 in the division, and then the Eagles were 3-3. So
What
it was
worries
pretty
you? What
tight.
worries you about the Philadelphia Eagles? Is it the head coach? Is it Jalen Hurts? Is it the line? Is it Saquon getting a little
Well,
older? No AJ Brown.
sure, there's a couple things. The offensive line is beat up and older, and you wonder do they have another great season in them. Sean Mannion's coming in there with that playbook. Is it going to acclimate to the pieces that he has there? Because some of these receivers, were they too dependent on AJ Brown to take the
Mm,
coverage away from him? And Nick Sirianni, yes, he's on a hot seat. I know he thinks he's the greatest coach ever, but it's a situation where he's got to win now, because maybe they move off of him and Jalen Hurts. They have not given that extension to Hurts,
yep.
and a lot of people question him. Defensively, Fangio back for that last ride. That group was not as dominant as they were when they won the Super Bowl. They were not stopping teams when they needed to, because the offense was putting too much pressure on them with all those 3-and-outs that they led the NFL in. So, they allowed 19 points per game in the defense, and they're going to need Grenard to come in there, Jalix Hunt. Their linebackers are going to have to play well without N'Kobe Dean. The secondary, that other corner spot, we're going to see if Reek Woolen, is he that guy that's coming over from Seattle with that pedigree, or is he a guy Seattle said take a hike?
And you bring up a pretty interesting point with Sirianni. Here's a guy that went to 2 Super Bowls, obviously with the quarterback Jalen Hurts, and they won one, right? So it's like body of work, equity you build up. But as you know, it's what have you done for me lately, right? So if they miss the playoffs or get bounced again, sure, a lot of questions are going to have to be answered. Rich, based on your assessment, the Giants should just not play this year. I think it's more about how they compete those first 6 games and wins. Listen, I don't like moral wins. I don't. I don't like moral wins, but I will say this. I do need to see them learn how to win some close games. And yes, I mean, some of those games that they lost, the Denver game was just utterly ridiculous. You can't have that quarterback drop back to pass on 3rd down. You knew he was going to throw a pick. It was just bad. The Lions game, there are so many games that they had in the bag. But remember, the blessing in disguise is if they win those games and say they finish with 7 wins, 8 wins, maybe Mara is thinking it's smoke and mirrors, or let's run it back. We don't need to go after a hardball right now. I believe once Harbaugh got fired, it was pretty clear to me that any smart team was going to scoop him up, even if the Giants still had Dable as the current head coach. I mean, it just, you knew they had to make a play for Harbaugh. So with that, I have confidence. I have confidence he's going to bring in a certain, he's going to instill a better culture. He's going to instill, we're going to try to win defense first, special teams, as you alluded to, and then let the offense do what they potentially can do best. And they're going to be a balanced attack. But I say this with confidence. Don't be shocked if there are games where it's just ugly. It's 21-17, 17-16. You talk about being competitive. If you want to be a team on the rise, you got to figure out how to close those type of ugly games. You know who did that last year? Carolina. They won some ugly games, they won some wild games, but they closed them out and they made the playoffs, right? And they took the Rams. They basically matched them punch for punch, right? So that's how I look at the Giants. And to your point, Lloyd, with the Philadelphia Eagles, there's too much talent on paper for them not to win the division. Washington, I'm not sold on Washington because I don't know what you're going to get from Jaden Daniels. I really don't. 100% healthy, okay. But you're also not blowing me away with any of your offensive weapons. And the Dallas Cowboys have shown you time in and time again who they really are.
Yeah, I agree with you on those two teams. Washington had one of the oldest rosters in the National
That's
Football
right.
League last year, and then they lose Larry Tunsil. That's just huge for them, and they're going to have to replace them. And you're hoping you get another good season out of JCM, but that was out of nowhere at the running back position. And McLaren's a nice piece, and Diggs coming over. How is he going to fit in the mix there? And just a lot of question marks. So, and Dallas, I agree with you. Last year 9-7-1. That tie just said it all. Where they can't win the big games when they need to, and particularly after Thanksgiving. When it gets a little tighter, and they just don't have that glide that they seem to have early in every season. So the Eagles, I'm interested though. Very tough schedule for them. 9 playoff teams. They have a lot of primetime games. They got to travel over to
Mm-hmm.
London, and just a lot in the mix. So yeah, I don't think the Eagles run away with it, but it's going to be competitive.
Michael chimes in with the customary uh, Bronco ball. Go Broncos. Where do you rank the Giants wide receivers in the division? Ugh, I mean, it's like saying, kissing your sister. I mean, listen, you got
Well, that Dallas
what?
obviously got the best receivers
I
too.
I mean, of course. I mean, that's you start there, right? You go CeeDee Lamb, you go Pickens. There's no AJ Brown, but I'm still confident with the weapons the Eagles have, right? With Smith, Neighbors coming off an injury, and then Washington's getting a little older. So I would go Dallas, Philly, and then as a toss up 3 and 4. The Giants they're not turning back the clock. That's what you guys think. They're not. They might rely. You actually might believe it or not. The most production, if Neighbors is fully healthy, we know he can be a friggin' beast. And Robinson was a product of not having Neighbors because he was more secure in the slot for Wilson and also Jackson Dart. But you might get a big time type of season offensively from Likely. I mean, he's a big friggin' target. He's already developing a rapport with Jackson Dart. So they might kind of turn back the clock a little bit and try to incorporate the tight end a lot more in the offense. I'm not saying go back in the days of, Parcells and Sims and Bavaro, but they've been able to utilize the tight ends over the years, whether it was a Shockey, whether it was a Boss. I mean, they know how to utilize a tight end. I think this kid, he comes over with hardball. They're familiar. He plays the game. He blocks. He knows how to play. He's got strong hands. He's a big target. I think he could have that 55 to 60 type of reception, 70, 85 targets, close to 800 yards, maybe 5, 6 touchdowns for the season. And he's a nice red zone target, too, at 6'4", 241.
Yes, and he's a big target as well. You can throw the ball up there, and he'll go
Yep.
get it. And yeah, Harbaugh and Shane, Joe Shane brought him there for a reason. You know what I mean? They think that he's
Yeah.
going to be a difference maker, and he's a leadership type of guy. He knows that Harbaugh steam, and he's going to help teach it to the other guys. So yeah, I think the tight end's going to be a big uh, plus for this Giants team. Him and Johnson, and but those receivers, somebody's got to step up out of that group, and hopefully Neighbors will be healthy.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's nothing wrong with having young playmakers, right? You can never go wrong with young playmakers. And they drafted the kid in the third round out of Notre Dame. Obviously, it went defense. That's another thing. We really didn't get into the defense, right? Because there's going to be a lot of expectations on Reese. There's going to be expectations, obviously, on Burns, certainly on Carter. Thibodeau, not even going to have that discussion. Jeff mentioned that he was a Lions fan. I think the Lions are a fascinating watch because the NFC North, the Bears arrived a little bit. We know the quarterback situation now. It's set in Minnesota. You've got the Packers that are looking to take that next step. And then you have a veteran Lions club. And this is a team that can put up a lot of points. This is a team that basically the head coach and the quarterback are joined at the hip. You know, Jared Goff had a really damn good season last year. The problem was at times the offensive line was a sieve. I know they only gave up 38 sacks, but you have to go back and watch some of these games, and it's when they gave up some of these bad sacks, right? And they're a good team, right? The Lions are a good team. I don't know where you handicap them in the NFC as a whole, Lloyd, but do you believe this team has the makeup to be a Super Bowl contending team, to be a Super Bowl contender?
Well, they need to get back to where they were a couple of years ago, and I think a big thing has to do with that offensive line. You got Panay Sewell, they're moving him over to that left tackle now from right tackle, and they're going to need to get Jameer Gibbs going and have him play like the guy that's got that huge contract. So offensive weapons galore, and they're going to be able to put up points on Monroe St. Brown, and as long as the line holds up, I think Goff will be comfortable in the pocket enough not to, get the happy feet that he tends to get sometimes and bad turnovers. And then the defense, Kelvin Shepard has got to do a better job in terms of that defense. I know he had a lot of injuries and he's hoping that Branch and some of the other guys come back, but they'll lean on Hutchinson. And I think in a very competitive NFC North, you may see them be one of the top teams.
Remember, they were 8-5. They were actually 7-4. They were 6-3, 7-4, 8-5. They gave up 41 to the Rams. They had that horrible loss to Pittsburgh, even though Goff threw for 364. They did nothing offensively against Minnesota, and then they closed out the season scoring 19 in a win against the Bears. By that time, they were already eliminated. And a lot of it, they live and die by these fourth down gambles. These fourth down gambles. I mean, that's just who Dan Campbell is. That's just who the Lions are. He's the type of coach that he's always going to go for the gamble, no matter what. But you go back to that Pittsburgh game. I mean, that was just an absolute debacle. They're at home in that game. They're at home in that game, and Aaron Rodgers did not play particularly well. He just didn't. You got a quarterback that throws for 364, 3 touchdowns, and they just could not friggin' run the football in that game. They just couldn't, and they lost that game, and that was the crippling loss. That game, in essence, knocked them out of playoff contention. But this is who Dan Campbell is. He's a head coach that is going to roll the dice constantly.
Yes, and they kind of limped home to end the season 2-3 in their last 5 games and losing games, as you said, they needed to get done. And in division, 2-4, so they got to do a better job in terms of these divisional games, which matter so much. So a lot of pressure on Dan Campbell. A couple of years ago they jumped out of nowhere, and then of course they lost at home to Washington, and everybody's like, oh, you know, they were who we thought they were, but they have so much talent on this team, and they can put up a lot of points. They average 28 points per game. But I talk about that defense with Shepard. They allowed 24 per game, so too many shootouts and then untimely turnovers that caused the season to go awry. And they're going to need Gibbs to run the football effectively. Isaiah Pacheco, who they brought over from Kansas City, he has an MCL. They're really not sure what's going on with him. Is he going to be ready? So it's all about golf and all the supporting cast around him.
And then as we kind of wrap it up, you look at this Packers team. I feel as though we haven't really. I mean, obviously we did our breakdowns and sticking with the NFC North, but how about the Packers going into the season and Jordan Love? Do we look at this type of season where now you take that step? Now you look at the stats and you say, okay, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The line did a pretty good job of keeping it upright. You need that 4,500 yard passing season, 35 touchdowns, 7 picks. And then we can kind of elevate him in that top level, that top echelon of quarterbacks in the NFL. How much of the spotlight pressures on Jordan Love?
Now the pressure is on Jordan Love and the head coach Matt LaFleur. They've been there a lot of years. They're paying Jordan Love like a $50 million quarterback, so they need him to kind of step up. and be the guy. Obviously, he's comfortable because Tyrod Taylor is his backup, and Kyle McCord. They're not going to take the job from him. So, but he's got to hold down the fort in terms of being that starter that's effective, especially late in the season and in the playoffs. Last year, just too many games, particularly on the road, 4-4-1. Where they got to close games out, and then including the playoffs, they lost 5 straight games to end the season. So it's just like a lot of pressures on them, and I know they don't have an owner there, but they have Ed Policy coming in as the new chairman of the team, and him and Brian Gutekunst, the GM, they want results. So their team, they looked at the Bears. The Bears won that division. They won all those close games, and they beat them in the playoffs too. So that losing their rivalry is not going to bad taste in their mouth.
Michael says Lloyd has the Broncos going to the bowl. Can you guys give us two NFL sleeper teams? Interesting.
Oh, sleeper teams.
Wow. Man, that's tough because you always get that year. Every year, right? We get those teams that made the playoffs, missed the playoffs, missed the playoffs, make the. You know, it's probably going to rub people the wrong way, and I know it's going to bite me in the ass for saying this. I think Atlanta could be a sleeper team. I
It's
think
hard.
Atlanta. I do. Well, look, we know the weapons that they have. They just signed Robinson. Obviously, they got Pitts, Dotson, London. You got Tua. Tua's going to be the starter. It's not going to be Penix Jr. I like that defense. They've got some players. They got to the quarterback last year. They drafted a cornerback. They went with a wide receiver out of Georgia in the second or third round. They tried to fix more of the defensive side of the football. I know that they just lost, who was it, Walker, one of their best defensive players.
Right.
That's a huge loss with the 10.5 sacks, right? But they do have some guys that can get to the football. I'll say now. What do we deem a sleeper though? Are you talking about a team that won 5 or 6 or 7 games, and now they're going to make that exponential jump? Like, this is a team that went 8-9 and won their final four. So I'll say Atlanta. I think maybe if things break right for Atlanta, maybe they are right there, second to last week in the season, maybe an opportunity to win the NFC South.
Well, it bad division, so they have a chance to win it. Last year Carolina wins with 8 wins, and yeah, every year since 1990, I always talk about this, at least 4 new teams in the playoffs, and so that's where I was like, all right, who's going to kind of step forward that was on the sidelines? Maybe Cincinnati. Maybe Cincinnati finally, if they keep Burrow healthy, they have all those weapons in terms of, Jamar Chase and the guys. The defense
That's low
does
bearing
scare
fruit.
you.
Yeah, low
Just
bearing
it,
fruit.
yeah. Atlanta, Kevin always on my show is saying, yeah, I love the Falcons, but I do. I think they could step up because they have Bijan Robinson. He's one of the best players in the National Football League. They're going to give him a ton of touches. Drake London's going to try to get things done over there. And then defensively, they're going to lean on Jesse Bates and some of those guys, but a lot of injuries there. I just think that division's there for the take. And so I kind of agree with you that they could be one of the surprise teams to jump out. Ugh,
I don't. I mean, if we're really being honest here, right, which we always are, Miami and New England in the AFC East,
right.
the Miami and the Jets are going to stink, right?
Yeah.
Pittsburgh's going to stink. Baltimore's Baltimore. I have no idea what the hell's going to go on with Cleveland, to be quite honest with you. Cincinnati, as long as Burrow's upright and the defense plays, the AFC South, by default, right? I mean, Tennessee, I just don't see them taking that jump. I really don't. I'm not the biggest Cam Ward fan, to be quite honest with you. I don't know, something about the kid. I hope I'm 100% wrong, but he just, I don't know, man. He doesn't see the game. It hasn't slowed down. Maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit because, you're talking about a young quarterback. We already know that. He played in 17 games. He got his feet wet. Maybe he takes the jump. I don't know. I don't like the coaching staff. You know that. I just, and again, I'm going by default when I'm looking at these divisions, right? So if you keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, Dallas, no. The Giants, no. A- Arizona's going to stink. So it's like, who do you got left?
Yeah, when I did this exercise, I put my definite no's, and it was like the Jets, the Cardinals. I think the Browns you can throw in there, Miami and Tennessee. Like they're not going to be in the mix. So I mean, what? Kansas City? Don't forget about
No,
them.
come on, man.
Come
I
on,
got,
they
I
didn't
got,
make the playoffs last year, and they get
come on. I got,
Mahomes
I got
back.
killed for. Listen, I don't even know. They might not make the playoffs this year.
Ooh,
Where's it written in stone? Because they're getting back Patrick Mahomes. They're older. You know, the Chargers. This might be their breakout year finally.
oh,
I,
I don't know. Herbert, time to
I'm
win a
just,
playoff game.
but I'm just saying, maybe this is the year we sit there and we watch this kid, and why not? Because he's already been in the league 6, 7 years. But maybe this is the year. I don't know. Denver still has that friggin' defense. They have a head coach, even though I'm not the biggest Peyton fan. You know I love the quarterback. I'm all about Bo Nix. Let him friggin' cook. Who's to say Kansas City is just a product of just a timing right now at this point with this run? And I got killed. Guys were commenting left and right. I mean, they're like, the only thing cooked is your friggin' brain because I said maybe the Chiefs are going to be cooked. So I don't know.
Yeah, we got Andy Reid, who's won all those games,
No
and
doubt.
Patrick Mahomes with him, and they are going to need better health. Xavier Worthy, their one receiver, he's already banged up with a shoulder injury. The offensive line trying to get that thing together. Last year when they lost Josh Simmons, their left tackle, that was a big loss for him, but he seems to be playing a lot better. Uh, Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey, they got to play solid in the middle, and then they got to get a running game from Kenneth Walker. He's coming over. They're putting a lot of eggs in his basket, and they hope he's able to run the football effectively. He's also going to have to catch the ball as well. So Spagnuolo's defense, little older, you know what I mean? And you wonder how much Chris Jones and the rest of this group has left. And they're bringing a lot of guys in on 1 year contracts. And
Hmm.
their rookie corner, Mansour Delaney, he's already a little banged up in camp already. So, yeah, there are some question marks there. So it's going to be interesting to see which of these teams jump up and be, the four that make it that weren't there before.
Interesting. What'd you guys touch on last night?
We just talked a lot in terms of training camp battles, looking at the quarterback situations. We touched on all of them, and with Cleveland, obviously it's going to be Deshaun Watson. He's going to get the first opportunity.
I
Not that it's going to make a difference.
I told you. I mean, but my whole thought behind that was the guaranteed contract, man. I know you hate when I say it, but you have to. You have to have him under center just to see what you get. Even if you feel he's not the right fit, he's not the answer going forward. When you give a quarterback 200 and something on million guaranteed dollars, you have to get a little bit. You have to see if you're going to get any return on your investment. And quite frankly, I don't think Sanders is good. And I don't like the fact that Dion's showing up at training camp. That also annoys the hell out of me. That coach does not need any type of distraction.
It, it's going to be interesting to see how Monken navigates this situation. They're just such in flux in terms of this team, and you just wonder if they're ever going to get it right. And the receivers, Judy, and they don't have much playmakers there. Junkins is okay at the running back position. Offensive line is patchwork, and yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult season for
Did
them.
did you hear his comment? This is
Which one?
hilarious. So I guess Jeff Shudel said, "Did you say Deshaun is better than Shador, or did you say Deshaun has gotten better?" And he said, "Quote: Oh, I don't think I said he's better than Shador. I'm not sure I went that far, but I appreciate you trying to trap me in that shit." Like he's got to be thinking to himself, "Oh my!" And look, I get it. There's only a handful of these jobs, 32 jobs available. You're going to take the friggin' job. You're going to interview. You're going to take it. But the worst thing and this is the problem with drafting Shador Sanders. It's just always going to be that friggin' headache. And I'm not saying it's the kid's fault. That's not what I'm saying. But it just comes with the territory because of his last name. You already know about the quarterbacking position over the last several years with this team. I mean, Stefanski basically alienated everyone. The organization decides they weren't going to hire Schwartz. Schwartz got pissed off. Forget about loyalty. He decided, I'm done. So I just can't see anything. anything at all remotely positive, and you can't cut him because he's making too much money. You got to give him a start. Anything positive with what's going on in Cleveland?
You got some young guys in a pretty good draft. You know, I mean, this year you want to see how some of those young guys come in. They had all those draft picks. Andrew Barry, they kept him around the GM, and you're going to see if he's built something and they can move forward. Other thing we talked about is injuries, Q. There's just so much injuries around the National Football League in these training camps, all these soft tissue injuries, and the teams are probably not going to play many guys in these preseason games. They want to keep them healthy. So I want to see these joint practices and see how they all perform against each other.
If your quarterback is a weirdo, you cut him. That can probably be said with a lot of quarterbacks. Interesting. Give me, with the Hall of Fame, we just saw it this weekend. Before I let you get out of here, I'll put you on the spot. Call an audible on this one. Give me 3 or 4 current players, not Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Patrick Mahomes, that we can sit there and say their path, they're trending towards a Hall of Fame career.
Well, I mean, low hanging fruit. I'll go Miles Garrett. I
Oh,
know.
no,
Yeah, he's definitely in.
Yeah, no,
He's
that's fine. I like
definitely
that.
in.
Yeah.
I think Jamar Chase. And then you talk about Justin Jefferson. He's
Justin
setting
Jefferson.
all time records right now in terms of that. Christian McCaffrey. I know he's year
Mm.
30 this year. But when you look at these dual threat backs, and you just saw Roger Craig get in, his numbers are going to be up there in terms of dual threat. I think he's going to get in there as well. And then the offensive linemen. Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, you talk about them. I think they're going to have a solid chance too.
How about this? How about this? What you guys think of my guy, Carson Beck? The guy predicted that was going to get drafted by said Arizona Cardinals. Efficient. What was he? 15 and 19, a buck 88.
Yeah, and then they took him out, and then Haynes King took over. It was a competitive game. It was good watch, 33-30. Carolina wins on the last play of the game, and
So much for
it,
the under.
yeah, it was interesting that Canales he wanted to win that game. You know what I mean? And they went for it, but it just showed you the Cardinals defense is not very good. They weren't
No.
stopping them at all. They converted a lot of third downs, a lot of fourth downs on those late drives, but yeah, it was good watching. For some early season football.
I like this one. Joey B in Denver chimes in. How long until Raiders hold on to Mendoza as second string mid-season? Ooh.
Ooh. Yeah, we were debating that one too because you talk about these quarterback battles and Cousins, even though he got in that fight with Crosby, he's going to be the starter. So when I look at their schedule, I think you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Maybe at the Jets, week 8. That's where it kind of gets a little soft, and he could play. But they have a tough early schedule. The Raiders. I know they have Miami week 1, but then they have at the Chargers, at the Saints, Kansas City, at New England, Buffalo. They have the Rams, and then that Jets game that I talked about.
What if Cousins is playing well and they're 4-4, 3-4, and he's putting up decent numbers? I mean, I get it. When the Giants signed Warner, remember, I think they were 5-4, and then he had some issues with the hands and fumbled, but they were going to go to Eli, and then they lost. They might have been even, I think 5-4, 5-3. I know they lost a string of games to close out the season. They won that last game on Sunday Night Football against Cowboys at home. Tiki Barber ran it in late. So I get it, right? You got that bridge quarterback. Obviously, Warner went on to have a Hall of Fame career with Arizona, second time around after we saw what he did with the Rams. Apples and oranges, but what if Cousins is kind of your pro's pro? He's operating, generating points, operating the offense, not making many mistakes. Actually throwing it down the field a little bit, not check down Captain Kirk, and they win a couple of games.
Yeah, you have Clint Kubiak coming in there. He once had a fish offense, so he's got that veteran guy to run it, and they're going to give Fernando Mendoza some time to kind of sit and learn, and I think that's a good thing for me. We've just seen too many of these young quarterbacks get beat up in their first season, where it's Cam Ward, even Caleb Williams was kind of running for his life his first season. So I think that Cousins will go out there, give you that veteran's presence, and they're going to need Jalen Naylor, who came over from Minnesota, to kind of be maybe their feature receiver after that big contract.
outlook on Bo Nix. Look, I like Bo Nix. He also just, Bo Nix is still a young quarterback, and you have to earn the trust of your head coach. And I think last year was the perfect storm for Bo Nix. That defense carried them, but the kid, he made some throws when he had to make throws. This is going to be year number 3 for Bo Nix. So we know he can get to that 4,300 yard threshold. Does he step it up to 4,300 plus yards, 30 plus touchdowns, and you get those interceptions under single digits?
Yeah, I think he's going to be one of the best dual threat guys if he's healthy. You know what I mean? That ankle injury was huge for them last year, and they're going to have to count on him to move the football with his legs because J.K. Dobbins is already banged up, Q, and I just don't know if he's going to stay healthy for a whole season. We're not sure what R.J. Harvey's going to do in his second season, but yeah, I think that Bo Nix could have a pretty good year, and he's got some good weapons. You have Ingram and Troutman at tight end position, Jalen Waddle, who's a little banged up. But he's coming over from Miami to be that big receiver with Cortland Sutton and Troy Franklin. So, yeah, I think he can put up some numbers, and he's pretty efficient with the football. I don't think he's going to have a lot of turnovers.
I listen. He's a good quarterback. He's a young quarterback. Like we always forget that. Like quarterbacks that are young, second, third year, we know all about the progressions. And that's all you're looking for, right? That's absolutely all you're looking for in a young quarterback. That's it. Because if they can man the offense, not turn the football over, obviously chances are you're going to win some games. Scotty would make it through the season healthy. Your guess is as good as mine, man. And I hate to see this kid only have like a 3-4 year career in the NFL.
Yeah, and he better stop doing backflips, all that
I
stuff,
agree.
and try to avoid some, guys. Don't try to run him over and you know, get all pumped up. But it's yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see. And I know that the offensive line is going to be key for them. We talked about how patchwork they've been over the last couple of years.
Let's see. If the Raiders' offensive line can't protect the quarterback, you won't see Mendoza until late in the season. That's a fair point. I mean, they couldn't protect Geno Smith.
I agree. Other than Colton Miller, it's been a revolving door around him. They did get some draft picks in there, but they're young guys, and we're going to see how they're able to acclimate. Maybe they'll lean on Genty first and then go from there.
5-2, Warner with the thumb injury. Yep. 2004. I think they just beat Minnesota. They had a big win over Minnesota that year. Yeah, Warner, the Giants signed him because they thought they can squeeze a little bit, right? And then he had the hand injury, he had the thumb injury. And then they decided eventually, they were going to they were finally going to, you got to make that choice sometimes, right? I mean, and the difference with this is, you talk bridge quarterback. So they're 5-2. They lost a couple games, and I'm pretty sure Eli got that first start against Atlanta. I'm pretty positive that was Eli Manning's first start of his career, and they went on a skid. And the other thing is, remember, that was a home game, so you're going to have these quarterbacks play at home, and he was dreadful. I mean, but again, it's just what do you want? I mean, it's your rookie debut. It happens sometimes. He's 1-6 as a rookie, but then the second year as his first time starter, full time starter, they were 11-5. They just got absolutely waxed in the home playoff game against Carolina. They couldn't score. So there's always this argument or sentiment. When is it time to go to the rookie? And quite frankly, only the head coach, only the team knows when it's time to go to the rookie. Like if they see something in practice that we're not seeing, and if they have confidence in the offensive line to keep them upright, and let's just say the Raiders are running the football, which is going to take pressure off the offensive line and take pressure off Mendoza, you might see him sooner rather than later.
Yes, I think they're just going to kind of play it by ear. You have a new head coach in there. Obviously, maybe Tom Brady as a minority owner there may have some input. He's going to be watching the whole thing, and I'm interested to see their progression. They're another team. It's going to be a building season for the Raiders, and they're going to need to jettison some of these older guys that are still there and get some playmakers on the offensive line.
To DB's question, I want to see Mendoza play. I mean, that's out of all the rookies, because I always gravitate towards the rookie quarterbacks. I just want to see, watching this kid in college, he was phenomenal. But it's a different animal on a Sunday. It really is.
Yeah, he's got to step up, and I think that's why they bring Kirk Cousins in there to have him his chance to sit and wait and kind of just learn. But he'll lean on Brock Bowers, one of the best tight ends in football. He's there. They got Tyler Linderbaum over, one of the best centers. They paid him a ton of money, and some pieces are there, but you don't want him to get shell shocked from too many hits too early. So
No, I like the kid Love too from Arizona. I do. I want to see. I'm curious. I mean, look, you got some good rookies. You got Downs, you got Bain, you got Price, you got Tyson, you got Lemon. You got some very good rookies that you get an opportunity to watch this year. I mean, the kid Reese, obviously, with the Giants, who knows? But me, I want to see this kid Mendoza sooner rather than later. But that's not for me to decide.
yeah, I saw that question. I was high on a Cornell Tate for Tennessee. I think he'll get a lot of catches, kind of clicking with Ward and Camp. And then, as you said, Caleb Downs for Dallas. I think he's going to be a big find for that secondary.
All right. I guess later on in the week, if you got a few, we might start to do a little look ahead, a little look see. I
All
mean,
right.
I listen. I got it right in front of me. Forget about preseason. I'm still looking to the. I mean, if you are curious, preseason lines. I mean, right now, Cincinnati's laying 7, Green Bay's 1.5, Indianapolis laying 3, Arizona laying 1.5 on the road, Houston laying 1.5. Uh, Giants will play on Sunday. They're getting 1.5 at home against the Vikings. And the Eagles and the Ravens. Remember, the Ravens never lose in the preseason. Eagles are laying 3
Yeah,
against the Ravens.
just like the other night with that Hall of Fame game, you never know. You
No,
got to be careful.
correct. You have to, especially when you say, yeah, play the under, and then one team destroys it. All right, brother. Later on in the week, we'll hit it again. Every Monday, 8 to 9, SR 1029 up on the game. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. Give Lloyd a follow on social media at Lloyd Vance, and he's also co-host with me with BYP Back Your Play. Appreciate you, pal. Thank you.
All right, Q. Thanks, Samuel.
All right, there you have it, my guy, Lloyd Vance. Good stuff with the NFL talk. We wanted to change it up a little bit. I'm going to be posting some shorts later tonight. We'll throw out some questions on the channel, get in on the conversation. Tomorrow, we've got a travel day. If I get home early enough, we will probably fire off late in the night. If not, we will be back at it on a Thursday. Don't forget, appreciate our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Also, played against Sports 48 in New York, Destin FM. We got the new Destin FM scoreboard show that is dropped. But for the first timers out there, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notifications. If you are just new to the show, we go absolutely heavy with the NFL, heavy with college. Costco is going to be joining us soon. Bueller is going to be back for another season. We got a couple former players that are going to be chiming in on a Football Friday as well. So if you are a fanatical football fan as much as we are, check out the channel, like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate all the first timers as well. And like to see a lot of Giant fans chiming in, because we are definitely going to go heavy with the Giants and the Jets in the NFC East and the AFC East as well. All right, back at it on Thursday, unless we get back early tomorrow. Maybe we fire off if there's any more nonsense in the W. We'll mix in a little NBA. Scheduling has come out, so we'll dive into that too. So you guys have a wonderful Tuesday. Like I said, maybe we'll fire off late Wednesday. Check the notifications. If not, right back here on a Thursday edition of On Cue. Fueled and powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Check out the show notes. BYP On Cue 20. That's Get Your Savings. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, my dear.